All right, good afternoon. Hello out there, digital world. I'm Amy Parsons, and I am filling in today for Alyssa Robinson, who is still on vacation. Alyssa, if you're watching, I hope you're having fun. We're talking today about trust. We're going to dig deeper into a little bit more about, Daniel talked about trust in terms of Psalm 23 specifically in his sermon. And so we're going to talk some more about trust today, kind of an interesting and sometimes challenging concept. So, Daniel, how are you doing today?
I'm great. You?
I'm doing all right. I'm in here where it's air conditioned, and that's a
That's
good thing.
always nice, right? You
That's
did
right.
great. You did great Monday. I'm looking forward to today as well.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. We had a few freezes and glitches that hopefully we got ironed out for today. So
Technology.
I know it's always a friend until you need it. So speaking of trusting technology, we're going to talk more about people. So the first question we got for you today is, are we supposed to trust blindly? Is that an irresponsible concept? Do we just go through just trusting everyone?
Yeah. Well, so Psalm 23 is about trusting God, not trusting people. And I would clearly say never trust people blindly. And I would say trust God blindly, cautiously, I guess is a best way to say that. I mean, I think a part of the point of the Psalms and the rest of Scripture, for that matter, is that God can be trusted. Unlike human beings and normal relationships that can't always be trusted, I believe God can be trusted. And I think when we have trust issues, that makes it hard to trust God because we are naturally sort of suspicious, right? But the thing that God identifies for us, both through Scripture and through the centuries, is that God can be trusted, and that there is a real sense in which God has the ultimate desire of our betterment and the ultimate desire of a intimate and transparent relationship with God, and therefore God can be trusted. So I believe Psalm 23 speaks well into that.
I think sometimes we like to put our human concept of trust on that. I know for me, I think, well, if I'm trusting God to give me this list of things that I've asked for, and not quite that simple.
Right. Yep.
Well, okay. So speaking in terms of people, can you tell us about a time when somebody broke your trust, and kind of were you able to get it back, and that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So, I certainly don't want to, mention
Throw
it.
somebody under the bus.
Yeah. So I go back a little bit. You know, in a previous church, there were some folks who I considered friends, quite literally, not just church members. And um, there was a point in time when they literally betrayed me in terms of just what I call turning their backs on me, and not only sort of discontinued the friendship, but really turned nasty, turned mean, and turned ugly, and literally to the extent of um, trying to turn me into the bishop to take my orders. And
Ah.
I've spoken to this in a previous session of Go Beyond, but
Mm-hmm.
um, that was a point in time when I really questioned who I was and whether I should be in ministry or not. And we never connected after that, obviously. I, in fact, asked that couple, husband and wife, to literally leave the church. And that not so much just because I wanted them to leave, but because they said publicly a number of times, we're no longer members of this church. But then they would show up to church meetings, right? And
Yeah.
so I literally just sent them a letter and said, hey, you have said on this date and this date, you are no longer members, and therefore I'm taking you at your word, and therefore I'm having your names removed from the membership of the church. But all of that stemmed from, differences of opinion.
Right.
It wasn't what I would call anything serious or deep or anything like that. Now, to them it may have been, but certainly to me it wasn't. But yeah, I lost trust in them as individuals, and I eventually got reappointed, so it wasn't a big deal. But it was hard. It was hard for somebody that I had done things socially with and had confided in and shared intimate details of my life with, and they with me, and it was hard.
Yeah, I can see why that would be. And especially the closer you are to somebody, I think of, I'm a big Survivor fan. I love the show Survivor. And, they use the word blind side all the time on that show. But those blind sides especially are the ones that are so painful. And I had some of those in my former career as business owner, where I really trusted a customer or whatever, and then something comes out of the blue, and it's painful. It's painful.
Yeah, we share, as I'm sure you have shared with your daughters, with our kids, about how important it is to maintain trust in relationship, right? And so, as it regards, for instance, adolescents, when they're growing into more and more independence, how important it is to maintain the trust that you go where you tell me you're going, or you're doing what you're saying
Absolutely.
you're doing, or and those are basic level concepts of trust, but that's what maintains trust, right? And so that's why I say humans can sometimes not be trusted, because sometimes we don't do what we say we're going to do or go where we whatever. But God can be trusted, because God is never deceitful. God is never
right.
Trying to misrepresent who God is. God is never sort of presenting something that is not. And so that's why God can be trusted.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Well, I can't speak to the teenager stuff personally, because I was a perfect angel as a teenager. And if my mother's watching now, I hope she doesn't comment. So
Yeah.
What about the last time that you kind of stepped out of your comfort zone? Maybe your gut was kind of wrestling with you on whether you could trust somebody, and you kind of just went out on a limb, so to speak.
Yeah, well, I'll actually speak to it more in terms of like church versus like personal relationships.
Sure.
And the most recent is quite literally COVID. So when we canceled church on site March the 15th, I that was complete trust. Golly, what is that going to mean? What is that going to look like? How are we going to function? What will that mean to the ministry of the church? All kinds of questions. And literally took me several weeks to kind of wrap my mind around, well, you know what? I think God's got this, and I think God's going to provide somehow. Don't know how, and don't know what that will look like or anything. But, here we are. Here we are, end of July. Thinking we would be out for like 2 weeks, right? You remember.
Right.
So it's created a lot of trust in God, because we're doing, as you well know, I mean, you're intimately involved in all of this. We're doing things so radically different than we've ever done.
Right.
And to just trust and believe that somehow God's going to help that work out is both difficult on the front end and highly rewarding on the back end, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
If you are willing to hand it over to God and then watch God do God's wonderful work, it's amazing and it's beautiful. And I'm grateful, because I now can trust God even more because I see what God's doing.
Yeah. Well, it's neat to see how that kind of ties in with the series we just finished with the Rechurch, listening to you talk about we're trusting that we can do it in a new way.
Right.
And, I'm sure they said the same thing the first time somebody said, I'm going to play an electric guitar in church, or, things like that. And it has been cool. And, people, have been very gracious on Facebook and other things, and said, hey, thanks to the digital team and thanks to this. But it's an honor for us to get to do this way, and to be able to bring that to people. So it's been super cool.
I remember, this goes back to my days at Argyle, the very first time we tried a screen in worship and images. And that for Argyle, that was 1999. And it was just, as a little bitty church, it was quite stirring, right? Because we literally brought a big screen TV, because we didn't have projectors and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it was scary. And it's funny looking back on that now, that bringing a screen or a TV or whatever would be scary, but it was scary at the time.
Yeah, change always is, especially if you're a 6 like I am. So when somebody betrays us, because it's going to happen to all of us at some point in our life, are we supposed as Christians just to trust them again? And what does that look like? Yeah.
Well, so there is clearly a difference, for instance, between, I align it with forgiveness. So if we forgive somebody for wronging us, which a broach in trust could be something that might need forgiveness. when I forgive somebody, I don't have to forget that they messed up or wronged me, because
Hmm.
I don't want that to happen again, right?
Hmm.
And so I think trust is highly similar. Um, while I don't, depending on what the breach in trust is,
Right,
I don't think
right.
we ought to necessarily break off relationship with that person, depending. I mean, there certainly are some instances when that clearly would be true. But if I maintain the relationship, it does not mean that I have to trust them in the same way or for the same purposes. Uh, I
Mm-hmm.
just think I now am more cautious, right? It doesn't mean
Hmm.
I have to write them off, but I have to take more precaution in the ways in which I might share information or offer up insights about my life, or whatever the breach is. And so I think our faithfulness asks us, can I forgive that person? And if I can, then how can I still be in relationship with them? And again, I maintain, if somebody has abused me, physically or sexually or emotionally or anything, I
Absolutely.
don't need to re-engage that relationship,
Right.
right? But if it's a matter of breaching trust, or just misrepresenting themselves, and I want to keep the relationship, I just think I now trust differently, and I relate to them differently, and I am more cautious about how I reveal information to them. I think that's how
Sure.
we do it.
Sure. And I was thinking as you were talking a while ago about teenagers, as I always told my girls, yes, you can be sorry, and yes, you can say this, but now we have a little journey to get back to for me to trust you again. And I know when Jillian, for example, my now college student, was younger, and I say this to Bella now, I keep telling them, the little tiny things that I learned to trust you on help with the big things on down the line. And, she called me at one point from college and said, Mom, thank you for trusting me. I have a friend whose mom is not letting her da 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 and all this. And I said, I didn't trust you right away. You earned it, and we got there. When you first got your driver's license, I didn't trust anything. I was terrified,
Right.
but we earn it. So,
Yep.
well, this is a fun and challenging topic both. And I think
Yeah.
as I said to you earlier before we were live, for me, I sometimes tend to trust too easily. And you were talking about getting betrayal, but I know that some people struggle with trusting at all.
Yeah.
So it's a
I think the beauty of the Psalms, particularly the Psalms of David, which several of the ones we've gone over the last few weeks have been from David, um, sort of reiterate that God can be trusted. And I think that's what I sort of want to ultimately leave to folks.
mm-hmm,
It is very normal, very natural, very typical for us to have trust issues with people.
right.
But God is different, and
Mm-hmm,
it is a part of God's. My belief is that it is a part of God's reality that God can be trusted, that God's never going to misrepresent, never going to mispresent, and therefore God can be trusted. And that's what Psalm 23 is ultimately about: is this sense of, I can trust God, I can place my heart in God's hands, and God's going to do the right thing. And that's what I would just want to leave us with. This is not about trusting people, though I hope we
right.
can trust people,
Right.
but this is about trusting God. Yeah.
Well, I can't think of a better way to end that, and words to hang on to for today in such a challenging age that we're living in, is that trust in God. So thank you so much for your time. We're here again on Friday at 12:30, and Alyssa will be back next week as well. I'm sure we'll get into some more fun stuff, and it's great to dig deeper into these concepts during the worship series. So we hope to see you online Friday at 12:30, and again, for our services on Sunday. Daniel, thank you for your time today.
Absolutely. Good to be with y'all.
Yep. And we wish everybody a happy afternoon. Thanks for letting me come and jump in for a week. Take care. All right. We are off live.
Cool. Good
All
job.
good to go. Yay. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah,
I like that.
it's fun. It's
Okay.
good.
Well,
Okay.
have a good afternoon. I'll see you I know I won't see you in the morning. I'll see Nick in
Yeah.
the morning.
Got Nick.
So have a good
I'm not doing anything, right? I'm not on video at all, right?
No, I don't think so. No,
Karen is still with.
they're filming the prayer right now. They're in doing the worship songs, and they're filming the prayer and stuff.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Cool.